In today's video, we're covering something that pains my soul more than anything else that I see in flying and skydiving. And that is folks getting into it, getting super excited, seeing all these cool videos, but then not really focusing as they go through their flying progression, bouncing around, trying to learn different things, running into roadblocks, spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and ultimately burning out and quitting the sport. That really hurts me because I love this stuff so much and all I want to do is share it with other people. So we're going to talk about how to prevent that from happening to you, no matter how hard it gets. I find the most important thing to do is to have a goal and a focus. So we're going to talk about choosing a discipline of focus for your flying. Okay? So it isn't going to be a super long video. I'm going to do more detailed videos on each one of these different disciplines and how to get into them, how to start building your progression towards them. So this is going to be kind of an overall broad strokes, what people are attracted to what disciplines. All right, so let's get into it. First thing I have for you to take a look at is this little tree diagram. It's kind of goofy. It looks like it came out of a children's book, but I find it's a good way to kind of think about things with your flying. Now, in the root section down there at the bottom, we have our basics, and that's going to be your AFF and A-license skydiving skills that you learn going through that first 25 jumps, or your level 1 tunnel flying skills. Essentially, can we do this and be safe and do it successfully with another person in there, in the sky or in the tunnel with us? Now, moving on from there, the world is your oyster. Okay, there is no doctrinal book anywhere that says you must do X before Y before Z. There are a lot of things that make sense. There's a lot of things that most folks agree on, okay, but it doesn't mean that you can't get done with level 1 or with your A license and say, hey, I would really like to be an angle flyer. I would really like to fly 4-way VFS. I want to be on a 4-way FS team. Or maybe even I want to do freestyle. Okay? These goals might seem massive and huge and lofty, but what they do for us, even at the beginning stages, is they give us a path to walk, a more clearly defined road. I see people so often get hung up on moves. They want to learn this move or that move, this trick, this transition. And then you end up with flying that's very disjointed and things don't exactly relate to one another, and you can't just go fly when you're at the tunnel. Or on a skydive, if I say, hey, I'm yours, tell me what slot you want me to fly, plan a jump that's going to be the most beneficial for you. I run into so many people that can't do that for themselves, because they just want to do the new next thing and they don't know how to do productive things that get them towards their goals with the skills that they have now. Choosing a discipline is going to really help you do that and sort those things out. So let's talk about what people are most attracted to what disciplines. Okay, some disciplines are good for certain people. All right, let's look at if you're creative, for starters. Okay, if you don't like a rule book, you want to just jam. That would be more free flow dynamic. Hey, follow me. You jump into the tunnel at a certain wind speed. Or, hey, I'm just going to lead some carve switches in the sky, whether that's on your belly, which you can do, or ripping around upside down, head up, head down. You can start doing that stuff right from the beginning if you understand the principles, the group theory of those types of things. Moving on. All right, there's some disciplines that are very geared towards speed, power. Now, with all the vertical disciplines, yes, our free fall speeds are going to be fast. What I'm more speaking of is movement speed, actual horizontal, carving, transitioning, that type of speed and power. Maybe you're an individual and you just love that creative, solo, freestyle, flips, trick flying. That's a very common thing that I get asked is, okay, trick flying, dynamic flying, static flying, what's the difference? The big difference between trick flying and dynamic flying is that trick flying, things are not necessarily built or structured so that someone could follow them, right? If you just flare down onto your belly and do a tucked backflip and come back down on the same path, you couldn't have someone follow that because you would crash into each other. Dynamic flying is all geared around someone actually being able to follow that line. So that's kind of the way I separate those two. And there's other thoughts on that. That is not end all be all doctrinal. It's just something that I use in my mind to kind of define trick flying versus dynamic flying. Teamwork. There's some things that are purely individual. There are some small team activities. There's some large team activities. That's a huge question that you have to ask yourself. If you really love being on a team, I see folks sometimes chasing trick flying when they tell me that they love teamwork and they love being in a group. Those two don't exactly add up. You end up spending X number of hours in skydives trying to learn trick flying, then you find out you're kind of lonely because trick flying it doesn't make sense to do that with multiple people. You know, freestyle and free fly, you are doing some tricks, but it's a small, tiny group and you're jumping with the same people over and over. Okay? If you're really into being on a team, think about that and think about where you want to put your time. Okay? If you're a competitive person, there's some disciplines out there that are not competitive. And we don't compete in a structured environment because we haven't really set the rules. Now, there's still group theory to those disciplines, right? The angle flying, hybrid flying, free flow dynamic flying. There's definitely still group theory that you do have to learn and that we can build up to make, specific goals. But if you're a really competitive person, love that juice that gets flowing when you're in the door or you're about to jump out of the plane and that second place or first place is on the line, then there's certain disciplines that you're going to want to look into and start learning the rules early on. That way you know what moves are going to be most important for that discipline. Certain disciplines are not social at all. Okay? Like I kind of mentioned, free fly and freestyle, those you want to jump with a very tight team over and over. Same thing, four-way VFS. I love four-way VFS, but if I'm being honest, it doesn't really get fun until you start actually moving with the team. And you can't really start moving with the team until you spend a really good amount of time with them and everyone gets to know each other and how they're flying. Whereas these other disciplines, you can just show up at the drop zone. Hey, who's jumping today? Who wants to go out and do this? And you're going to be able to make it work. It's more inviting for a group environment. And kind of like what we just mentioned. Tight-knit group versus kind of an open environment where people can kind of come and go and you're still going to have a decent amount of success as long as everybody's open and honest about their skill level. So, going through all of this, the biggest thing you have to ask is what inspires you? What do you see? Go find videos on YouTube, or even better, folks at your home drop zone or home tunnel, and you say, wow, that's amazing. I want to fly like that. I want to do those things. Ask them, what are those things you're doing? What discipline is that? How can I get into it? Because there are definitely things for all disciplines that you can start doing at a very basic level if you get the right advice, the right coaching, the right mentorship that are going to set you up for huge success in the future. Similarly, you could say, I'm just going to learn how to do this, this, and this, and then later on down the road, I'll pick a focus. That can set you up for spending 10 hours in the tunnel, X hundred number of skydives, and then attempting to jump in with one of these groups and fly this discipline and realize, wow, I should have learned to head switch when I was on my belly. I should have been focusing more on my level control because I realized maybe I'm not really that good at that. By getting into these disciplines sooner, you're going to identify those things about your flying and be able to correct them at a roots, in a roots environment so that it grows with you and with your flying and that you don't get slapped with it later on down the road when you feel like you should be better than you actually are. More videos to come, kind of getting more into the nitty-gritty of how to start flying and gear your progression towards certain disciplines. But the first step is making that choice. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I hope this gives you a little bit of information to go off of to gear your progression towards what you want to do and find most inspiring. As always, fly fast, fly tight.